Welcome to our August and September edition of Let's Get Growing. Without further ado, let's get growing. All right, we're in August and we know that it's getting hotter, and as the temperatures rise, raise your mowing height, and that's going to help reduce the amount of water you have to put on your lawn because the taller foliage will shade the lawn. Speaking of water, you've got to hand water those dry spots, particularly under our current water restrictions. And remember, you'll be doing that in between your two watering days. And then water those annuals. All your newly planted areas must be watered at least once a day for the first 7 to 14 days to make sure that they're rooting into the surrounding area. And then keep your azaleas, caladiums, and other moisture-sensitive plants wet. And don't allow your plants with green fruits like berries, etc., on your hollies to dry out at this time, or we're not going to have those beautiful berries for the winter to feed the animals, but also to make decorations out of. And while we're talking about watering, you know we always advocate soak, don't sprinkle. We need it to go down at least 4 to 6 inches. How do we know if we've watered 4 to 6 inches deep? You can take a screwdriver and stick it in the ground and pull it out and see how far down you've got moisture. Simple method of testing how deep you're watering. In August, remember, we're going to have some grass clippings. You're going to have extra limbs that you've taken off that have fallen off out of the trees. We can start a new compost pile right now for all those leaves that we're going to have this fall. Pruning at this time of the year is almost an art form because you want to be very careful and prune your hedges as needed. Severe pruning at this time is going to cause more tender foliage to come out, and you're going to have to water more often. And then on our roses, let's remove the dead or diseased wood. You know you've been deadheading the whole time, and then fertilize, and you should have a wonderful crop of fall flowers. And while we're talking about fertilization, we've got to hit those mums about once a week until the buds start to show color. And we'll also be hitting the caladiums with a 2100, and so I think you're going to notice there that we're very high in nitrogen. That's basically what they need. Remember, nitrogen causes foliar growth, which that's all caladiums are. If you notice the blooms coming up, a little spath type bloom, you need to pick those off because we're growing them for foliage. If they're blooming, they're not going to put the nutrients into foliage. And then watch for and treat if you see grub worms, chinch bugs, and you're going to find spider mites everywhere. Remember to look on the underside of the leaf, underside of the foliage, and do we see webbing or microscopic insects? And then you'll actually just wash them off with a strong stream of moisture like water, and then that's going to set up a fungal infection that will kill the eggs, and they'll disappear if you do that for 7 to 14 days. All right, well, we can plant for spring color, and let's do, at this time of year, we can do zinnias, snapdragons, dianthus. You'll want to start looking at pansies, kale, and other cool season annuals, and we're going to be very, very marginal. Remember, we're still in August. Let's try a few wildflowers, and then you have to let them go to seed, cut them back, leave them in the lawn area, and they'll come back every year. Divide your spring blooming perennials now and share with a neighbor. Check out this list on the screen and you see how many different perennials you can plant, and sharing with a friend just makes sense. Well, welcome to our September edition of Let's Get Growing, and unfortunately we're still going to be mowing. And so mow once a week and never remove more than 1/3 of the total leaf blade. And then you can still plant from seed all these different wildflowers. And then once again, separate your irises and daylilies and share with a friend. And you too are going to be making more friends and more places beautiful in Grand Prairie. And in August, if you're going to overseed your lawn, this is the time to do your annual rye or fescue. And we're still sowing seeds in flats for winter annuals to be planted as soon as the temperatures slow down. So another list. So let's talk about fertilization, because you're probably going to be doing your last fertilization and pre-emergent application in August and September. And so you'll want to use a 15-5-10 with sulfur-coated urea or sulfur in it. That's going to change the pH and make the nutrients that are there more readily available. Also, don't forget, let's fertilize the coleus and the caladiums again, and we're going to use the ammonium sulfate, and we use it at 1/3 to 1/2 pound per 1,000 square feet. Let's talk about pruning this time of year. On the trees, we want to remove any dead or diseased wood, and you can uplimb a little bit, but let's hold off on major pruning because they can still sun scald. Begin disbudding your chrysanthemums, lightly prune your geraniums and begonias, and that's going to facilitate new florals or flowers at this time. And you can, if you have the time, just cut the seed heads off your crepe myrtles. Let's not be committing crepe murder, which is nubbing them off. Remember, just remove the dead seed heads. Okay, we're going to want to talk about water because it's going to be imperative this time of year. Remember, we still want to watch everything that has green berries or fruit that's being produced, and hand water newly planted areas, and then plants with fruit, things with berries so that they don't drop off and we don't have those beautiful red berries. But also, let's remember the garden. If we don't water our cucumbers and eggplant, they're going to become bitter. And caladiums and coleus are going to have water or they're going to drop their leaves. So let's protect them. Water our lawns as needed, deeply and thoroughly, to force the root system down and protect it through the winter. And then last but not the very least, remember, feed the birds. Well, that's our August-September edition of Let's Get Growing. Remember that your preparation now will help you make it through a winter that we have no idea how cold it'll be, but we know we need to prepare.